somehow attached it to funding international conflicts
That's right.
at the expense of the people, the poorest people, who could benefit the most from that money.
That's right. And using other people's pension money to fund a lot of it, or to get it off the ground.
And if you oppose it, you're fascist.
Isn't
It's kind of brilliant.
It's sort of brilliant.
It's kind of brilliant.
Yeah.
It's either intentional, or we're just so vulnerable to ideologies, which seems to also be the case. It's why there's so many different sects of religions, even sects of Christianity. The fucking Protestants hated the Catholics forever. What happened in Iraq with the Sunnis and the Shias. This is always the case.
It's always the case.
People have like really rigid ideologies, and the punishment for abandoning them, or the punishment for stepping outside, is death.
Yeah, that's
death.
right.
You're fucking dead, you bitch.
Yeah, that's
You're not
right.
one of us.
You're not one.
And that is what we're seeing in this country. We're
right.
seeing this weird leftist, progressive ideology with a super wide net that covers so many things, including all these industries that are set up to make it look like they want a better world, where really they just want to dominate a sector of the market, whether it's green energy or agriculture or food or plant-based meat or any of this fucking psycho shit that they're trying to push all the time. They're doing it for profit, and they're doing it this super wide net of being a good person, being a progressive.
That's why I call it neoliberal communism, and I say that Deng Xiaoping character we were talking about earlier is like, he's the guy that nobody knows about, except, I mean, the Chinese do, obviously, but we really need to pay attention to what he cooked up, and how what they have, whether it's World Economic Forum or UN or the WHO or their god-awful treaty to, the health sovereignty thing. Have you seen, you know what I'm talking about, right?
What is that?
Well, let me finish the thought.
Okay,
we'll come back to it. They're copying that same model. It's neoliberalism, which is how do you get huge corporations to be able to basically get tons of money and have monopoly power and make it off of the government. That's why the Rockefeller guy would have been interested in all this. And how do you do it with a communist ideology at the same time? China is the model. We're seeing it build out in the West. This stuff, like we now are seeing proof. It just came out the other day that the Chinese are like funding the trans stuff. They're like pushing it, right? I just wrote a book. I didn't even know that to put it in the book. I wrote a book about the trans stuff. It just came out on the 29th called The Queering of the American Child, to talk about how schools have been turned into like indoctrination centers. It all goes back to the not just Marxist but Maoist strategy to make the world conform, that politics of compliance, to make the world conform to this new ideological vision that they have. And it's got to be like we were saying. It's got to be religious, like to the people who believe it.
It is religious to the people that believe it.
New values. They even say that. Klaus Schwab said that you can't rationalize, or you can't. How did he say it? You can't rationalize values through the intellectual process alone. It requires faith.
We've all seen children that grow up in religious cults. We've all seen the horror stories of children that come from these radical religious cults, and they escape when they get older, and they tell the story of the indoctrination and what all they believed. When I see a woman and she's got 3 trans kids, that is what I think of.
Yeah,
I
for
think
sure.
of someone who is a full adherent and ideologically captured by this cult to the point where they see value